So you might not like my answer, but I'm going to share it anyways because I believe it's so true. And that is your presence. It's all your kids want. Your kids want your undivided, undistracted attention. The currency of your attention is worth billions, and that's what they want. And that's why we do the inner work, so that we know how to shut off the chatter, and we know how to be present, and we know how to not be building a grocery list when we're playing with blocks.
Welcome to the Angelic Frequency Podcast. We are your hosts, Christina Aroche.
Liz, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Sophie Frabotta. She's known as the Soul Whisperer, and she's a spiritual teacher, healer, and founder of Awaken with Sophie. Her work focuses mostly on soul connection, ancestral healing, and helping others awaken to their true essence. It was such a wonderful conversation. We talked about everything, mostly about motherhood and her journey with her daughter, Claire, which is so interesting for us, and how to incorporate a spiritual practice with your children. So it was truly inspirational for us. So we hope you enjoy.
Hi, Sophie. Welcome. We're so excited to have you here with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We are so excited. We've been engaging with your content for a long time. We know all about you and your daughter, Claire, and we can't wait for our listeners to hear this too, because we think it's one of the most important roles we have in parenting. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting conversation. But for our listeners who maybe are new to your work, that's a great place to start. Can you tell us in your own words who you are and what you do?
Yes. Well, I'm Sophie. A lot of people know me as Awaken with Sophie across social media platforms. But ultimately, I am an interdimensional healer. And what that means is I help people go within to find the hidden blocks, remove them so they can experience a different outer reality. That's the work I've been doing for 20 years. And then I became a mother. And I was like, how do I translate this kind of work to a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old mind, and so that's where my work really began with Claire. Actually, my work began with Claire just through observation. I never wanted to push anything on her. I just would play my sound bowls. And I actually this was when she was probably 1.5 or 2. I use essential oils, organic, medicinal grade essential oils. And when you're done with a bottle, it's like, well, what do I do with this? I have a whole recycling issue. I like to recycle everything, reuse, recycle, or, find a new use for it. And I made this box of just oils. And so that was considered, they were really, really tight, and they were all empty. But it was her first exposure to working with aroma and frequency. And so she would take those, and I would ask her, what do you feel drawn to? And then she could interact. And so we played with oils and we played with sound. And I taught her to play sound, very gentle. I believe in teaching children and animals gentle as soon as you can. I think they all can learn it. And it's a frequency exchange. So it's just gentle. You just offer the energy, and they'll pick it up. Animals, dogs, cat, any being. Even plants, if you're into communicating with plants. But so that was really our first introduction to her kind of coming into this world. And then her and I together just started to explore at her level, because I do this very deep, very advanced work with adults. But yet here I am with this very young child. And so learning how to blend those two worlds was very interesting.
Amazing. I love this so much. And I'm really excited to dive into this conversation because both Luisa and I have kids, and we also have daughters. So I feel like this is just such a beautiful deep dive into how do we navigate spirituality with our children? How do we bring through this, which I believe, and I'm curious to hear, Sophie, your take on this, but I feel like this generation of kids that are coming in now is just a whole different energy that's coming through onto the planet. And so how do we, as parents who we're going through an awakening and we're going through our own thing, our own healing and all of that, and yet at the same time we're guiding these children as they are awakening, so hopefully they don't have to go through as much trauma as we had to go through, you know? So what's your take on that in terms of the souls that are coming in now, and what our role is as parents to help them navigate whatever their purpose is on earth?
I think there's a whole lot of variety in that. So I think you have very advanced souls, you have indigo, you have people that have really answered calls to the planetary mission. Like there's just a big variety. So I like to make sure that we're not like just saying, oh, all these advanced souls are coming in. It's like, well, there's lots of different types of advanced, and there's lots of karma as well that is coming to be cleared through these relationships within those same souls. So like if you have an old soul, you probably also have a sack of karma that you came to work through and work out with that inner genius skill, right? So I feel like it's kind of twofold. And I think there's not enough talk about that because we just want to make it shiny and sparkly and like, oh my gosh, they're so advanced and they're so connected and all that is true. And it's also true that they came to clear some massive stuff through their bloodline as well. So my take on it is really looking at the whole picture and being willing to support your children within their gifts. So like within my generation, the gifts really didn't get supported, right? So they got muted and then they had to get turned back on and relearned. Imagine a generation that gets nurtured. They never get turned off. So then by the time they're 20, when I was just turning mine back on, they're already so accelerated. So I think that's a huge opportunity with these children coming in, regardless of their parents, is to be aware that these gifts are not weird. They're not a mistake. They are ancient genius. And it's our role to keep them alive, not let them turn off.
I just got chills. Like actually throughout what you were saying, there's different moments. I was like, chills. So yes, I love that. And it really resonated with what you shared.
Totally. And that was my own experience, turning it off, then back on, and just feeling that there was so much time wasted in there, having that dormant. But taking a step back to your practice with adults and understanding that a bit more, because you touched on a very important topic, healing those inherited wounds and the ancestral patterns that we bring. Can you walk us through a little bit more that the healing the bloodline and healing the planet and all the work that you do along those lines?
Yeah, so that's really my big mission, is to not just talk about that concept, which sounds so pretty, right? Like heal the bloodline, heal the planet. That is my life's work in a nutshell. But what does that actually mean? That actually means that we're facing our shadow. We are diving deeper into what scares us. We are acting out of courage and bravery every single day. And we are facing the parts of ourselves that weren't able to be faced by our ancestors. So it is not, one thing that's very important for me to draw a distinction here is that there's so much talk about, I have to heal what's not mine to carry. And what I like to draw the distinction of is, if it's in you, it's yours. That's the first step to healing, is responsibility. If it's in you, it's yours. It doesn't matter if it was abuse or if it was passed down to you as a disease. If it's in you, it's yours. And this, when you take responsibility for it being yours now, you get out of victim fully. Not, oh, I was passed down this abuse pattern. Oh, I was passed down this disease. I was passed down this fill in the blank. But I'm a carrier of this. Holy crap. It ends with me. I'm becoming a cycle breaker. So I step into my shoes, I take responsibility, and I start to look at how this is playing out within me. And then I take responsibility and I do the deeper work to find the frequency and remove the frequency from my cells, my tissues, my bloodline, my thoughts, my emotions, my frequency, my blood, my fluids. Like I do the work. And this isn't just like, oh, let me clear my bloodline, right? This is a sequence of healing. This is facing the inner child, facing the shadows, spiraling trauma out of your system, learning to hold divine light at longer and longer increments inside of you, right? It's stabilizing the fifth dimensional frequency inside of your body. And you do that through clearing the density. And the density is what those ancestral blockages and all this stuff that really coagulates through the bloodline and then moves through families when just one person takes responsibility and starts doing the work. The blood thins out. And I have seen this in real time in my life from the work I've been doing specifically over the past 3 or 4 years. I have seen changes in my daughter and my mom.
Oh, because of the work that you're doing on yourself personally, right? And then
and also, yes, the work that my mom is doing on herself. Okay. And then the work and the connection and what me and Claire talk about, you know, and the work that we do, because she has karma that she is working through. She is highly sensitive person in a very real world with real situations and real friends and real, we don't have her. We had for a little while there, we did have her off grid in more of a homeschool Montessori type of situation. And then that kind of came to an end abruptly. And we had to pivot and make a decision. And I was looking at all these private schools and looking at these different situations, but we had 2 weeks and it was around Christmas until and her soul chose the public school path.
Wow.
And since she has done that, she has flourished academically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. And that's where I believe it's just so important to trust her path. Because when we're in that situation, it was December 12th, right? Schools are closing in a couple of weeks for Christmas and then it opens again. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with her? You know, as much as I would love to homeschool, I can homeschool on spirituality and emotional techniques all day long, but you want me to teach arithmetic and reading? Right. I barely can read myself. I am not the one for that. And know your weakness and know your strengths, right? So as much as I would love that, it's just not in my skill set to have offered that to her. I don't think that would have been the best for her. So being in that situation and then just being guided and trusting, it's not what I wanted. It wasn't what I wanted at all. Granted, we are zoned for a very, very lovely public school, very small, in a very lovely area, but it's not what I would chose. So it's that I feel is a real life example of how the healing starts to play out if we allow it. Things will shift and what we perceive as loss all of a sudden shifts enough pieces that it becomes a magnetic leap into a new reality. And that new reality then offers you your new lessons. I don't know how long we'll be at this school. I kind of take it, it's just an open-ended story at this point. And we'll just deliver on the needs. Rather, it's not a linear plan. It is an energetic, spiritual, emotional unfolding that we'll cater to as her parents.
That's so beautiful because it's you're really truly leaning into that spiritual divine support and also understanding. I feel like you said it's not linear, and I feel like that's a huge part of how the old paradigm was of linear and do this and all these check boxes that we gotta fill out. And now it's no, maybe the school is good for however many years, and then we shift over here and that, and just being fluid like that and flowing with it. And it sounds like a huge part of what has contributed to all of you being able to navigate that is the healing work that you're talking about.
I believe so. I believe that's kind of we'd imagine, if I heal the bloodline, I'm going to have internal peace no matter what. But internal peace really means that you are so anchored into your truth and your stability, regardless of what's happening. And you have trust, right? Trust is one of the biggest medicines we can take, because with trust, there isn't the same amount of stress. And that's why I see spirituality as such an important factor to living. I couldn't do this I almost left this planet, and it was God that intervened into my world and showed me a new way. And that's the only reason I'm here, is because of God. And so I feel that spiritual piece is just so, so important. It's a lifeline. To me, it is the bloodline. And so as we're doing this work to clear, right, and face our own stuff, it doesn't have to be I don't do work for my mom and I don't do work for Claire. I consider that spiritual trespassing. I do work for me. What am I a carrier of? oh, I'm a carrier of depression. Oh, so was my mom. So was my grandma. So was that entire family line. Okay, awesome. That's your story, but it ends with me. Let's go into this depression and let's look and see what it looks like. And so if you want, I can kind of give you an example of what that interdimensional experience is like.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I become aware of this. There's nothing in my life that I should be depressed about. There's nothing that's going wrong. I have everything I could possibly need. I am like the living example of who I dreamed about being 5 years ago, right? Like, there's no reason for depression. So when I was feeling this depression, I said, whoa, I'm going to come meet you because this feels different. So I went within and I explored and I just asked my higher self to guide me to it. And I do a lot of imagery work and a lot of, different things. So I was going down into, like the stairway of my soul, if you can imagine, like 12 different steps, gradually going deeper and deeper, asking for this to be revealed. And I ended up meeting this big cardboard box, kind of like in a dungeon. And it was dark and it was dusty and it was like had a real creepy vibe. And this was the depression implant. And so I said, what's in that? Do I need to know what's in that box? Or do I need to just dispose of it? And sometimes we need to go through and look at all the pieces and transmute them separately. But that's why I ask, right? I asked a question at that point to my highest self, and I was told that it is all old. I am a carrier of it, but it can end with me. And then all of a sudden, I saw the box floating in a red river.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I got to get it out of there. It's floating in the red river. Bloodline. So I got some tools and got it over. And then I use this imagery tool called the Jesus vacuum, which is a vacuum of transmutation. I have a relationship with Jesus, but I don't consider myself a Christian. I just have a very strong relationship with Jesus, the healer. Anyways, I have this Jesus vacuum, and the one of my main goals as a light worker, as a healer, is to always return lost fractals and density back to the divine. It's like a recycling thing. I am not a litterer. And a lot of people are energetic litterers. They're like, get it away from me, get it off me. And they just push negative energy out into the universe. And then what does it do? It finds another owner. I will not be part of that. So I believe in transmuting all those frequencies. So I allow the divine to come in, and it sucks up, and it always accommodates for whatever size you're dealing with. It will be bigger. And then once it goes up the vacuum, it's off my hands and it's to the divine. And I basically proclaim as a decree, I am returning this back to the divine to be recycled back into light. It ends with me. You are done. And that's it. So I got that box. I returned it to the divine. And then I tested the water and I felt a shift. I felt a shift in the Red River. And I now have like a higher wisdom around what that box looks like. So if it comes back in little pieces, I can catch it and transmute it instantly.
That's amazing. You have so many tools in your toolbox. Sorry, it sounds like amazing tools to work with. But I'm wondering, I mean, besides working with someone like you, of course, but for someone who's starting to get introduced to this work, like what would you recommend people begin with to start diving into healing their bloodline?
So that's a great question. I would suggest that they start with meditating. Now, I teach spiritual meditation, which is very imagery visualization based. And it doesn't matter what type of meditation you do. I encourage people to start with 5 minutes of eyes closed stillness practice. And whether that's you following an imagery of walking through a meadow or you focusing on your breath or your heartbeat, it doesn't matter. Just start going within. Because within is where you have your wisdom and your answers. I know we are going to ChatGPT and asking our advisors, what should I do? But at the end of the day, Like, this is one of my main messages, is your answers are within.
Yeah.
So true.
Absolutely.
And so if you want to go within, you got to start practicing. Once you start practicing, you can learn a lot more skills, techniques, and transmutation activities that are so profound and instantaneous that you get to see what we call externalization.
Mm.
Do you know what externalization is, or should I define it?
I think you should define it.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For all, I feel like it is a new term for many. And basically, have you ever met somebody that's like, oh my gosh, I've done all the work. I've read all the books. I know about the inner child. I've done it. Oh, I've read that. Okay. But yet nothing has changed in their life. Nothing.
Yep.
They are not having externalized results from the work they're doing, which means that it's only getting in on the mental level. When we have true externalization, which means that our inner shifts show up in our outer reality, when we are seeing that proof in the external reality of this shift, it's an indication that you've gone down to the cellular level. You've gone down past the thoughts, past the emotions, past the beliefs, and into the truth center. And you have reprogrammed. And so your external reality has no choice but to reflect that back to you.
I love that.
Makes so much sense. Yes, because we tend to do that and fill ourselves with, books and theory and all that stuff that's so good. But at the end of the day, the practice is what truly makes the difference. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It's not going to make a difference.
I think it's because the practice is the hardest part, right? Like to actually face it and to actually do the work and to show up for it. It's the hardest part. So yeah, it makes so much sense.
So much sense. I'm curious because that sounds a lot like motherhood. Going back to Clara, going back to motherhood. It's so tough. It's so hard to be a mom. I mean, even like putting the spiritual practice aside, it's such a rough exercise in terms of re-educating yourself and relearning and opening your own wounds and, facing your own, demons. And so my question is like, what has motherhood given you and taught you about your own spiritual growth?
I see motherhood as like a real return to your own inner child. And as you mother, you get these stop points at age 1 to look at all your unmet needs that you carried, because those are going to be the triggers that you have through your children. Now, if you have multiple children, you get multiple stop points, right? You get to circle back to age 4 2 times or 3 times to pick up the pieces of your own childhood that were left unmet and unhealed. And so that's the hardest part, because we have so many things that we're doing. We don't feel like we have the capacity to meet these unmet parts of ourselves. When we're going to soccer practice and we need to get lunches ready and we need to get their shoes on, we don't necessarily feel like we have the capacity to be like, oh my gosh, I was always so rushed. And what if I stopped and expanded time and got into the 5th dimension right now with my children on the way to school? What would happen? But that takes consciousness, right? That takes conscious shifting and awareness in the moment. And that's a practice. And the biggest thing that I have found with motherhood is be who you are. There are too many people, in my opinion, following parenting advice and not following their heart. Again, following the external voices instead of the internal voice. And your children picked you for a reason. You carry everything they need, whether it's things that you're not going to meet that they signed up for so that they could heal in their 20s, or things that you are going to implant into them that are going to provide them with such a foundation to be able to face what's coming to them in their 20s. And I think that as hard as it is, I only have one child. I can imagine as you get more children that those stakes increase tremendously. But if you felt called into that, you're there for a reason. And I would encourage mothers to trust that and listen to yourself. I've been in communities where people really are following an approach and it's so robotic and heartless. It's all mental. It's all linear. And I just think when you have these little beings, especially underneath age 7, who are only wanting to operate off connection, and you're only operating off of thought and approach, like, where's the connect? We have a miss here, folks. So that's my take on motherhood.
Yeah, I love this. And I can definitely resonate with that. I have two, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So it's funny because when I was pregnant with my second, I was kind of like, oh, well, I'm already a mom. I already know the newborn stage. I already know all these things, like I'm so confident. So like, oh, it's gonna be so easy. And then it's just like, yeah, it's literally what you just said is just like two different beings, two different needs, like completely different. It was a big like reawakening, rebirth experience for me, where there was a moment of like me feeling so lost and disconnected and like, who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore, after the second one was born. And not expecting that at all, because I thought, oh, well, I already got this motherhood thing down. Like, I know what's going on, but it's so different. So it's exactly what you said, just that whole journey and experiencing through that with the second one. It's very interesting how that comes to be.
And that's intense, right? Because then you have inner child situations that you can be facing inside of you at age 2 and 4 simultaneously. So the stakes are amplified there. But if you look at it that way, and you don't just get overstimulated and frazzled by all that's coming at you and be like, wow, okay, I have unmet needs too. Let me just take 30 seconds and just see what comes up. Like, what is inside of me that's dislodging me from my center? Because when you're in your center as a mom, like, you are Superwoman. And it's only when you get dislodged that it feels like too much.
Yeah. Totally.
And so if we're continuously checking in on those points, what dislodged me, and where can I do the work to make sure that I'm always coming back to my center, that's when I can be my best mom.
Yeah. So good. Even just having this conversation, it's just like, yes, little nuggets are sinking in, and I'm so excited to be able to just apply this on a deeper level with my kids, So thank you.
Same. Thank you. I'm just thinking through my morning this morning earlier today. And yeah, definitely. It's such a beautiful process because it constantly gives you the opportunity to iterate and shift. And you're so right when you say, like, it's just constant practice, and you just have to be aware on your day-to-day, every moment, to make the conscious decision to do things differently and to choose differently, and just to be there along for the ride with them. But going down the spiritual path when you're dealing with shoes, and we need to get out the door, and simple things like that, but are such big triggers sometimes. So I'm curious, in your work with Claire, like inviting her into your spiritual practice, well, you've told us about the essential oils and how that was kind of the initial invitation, but how does that look like now, and how has that unfolded for her?
So, developmentally, kids can really learn to start meditating at around age 4. And all that is going to be is eyes closed, body still. Eyes closed, body still. And really teaching them not to follow the ego. So I taught meditation at her school for 2.5 years to a group of children ranging in ages 4 to 8. And I learned a lot through that period. I learned a lot about their capacity, especially having such a wide variety of kids at that age for that skill. And it was very interesting. It was a very interesting process. But basically, that's what we would start on, was eyes closed, body still. And then giving options, like we can put our palms up, and that means that we want to open our energy to the universe. Or we can put our palms down, and that means we want to circulate our energy inside. So what do you guys want to do? What is your choice of palm position? Because we're going to keep it still once we get there, right? And so then they start thinking, oh, I want to do it down today. So now, like, just little things like this, right? And so we would do these 3-minute meditations. And then I brought sound bowls, and we would play the sound bowls, staying quiet. So we were actively just expanding little, like second by second, right? We're not taking quantum leaps here. We're expanding second by second of being able to be in a stilled, not just following the chatter and the ego desire. Because I feel like spiritually, the child before, up to age 7 is just so used to acting on impulse. And meditation is the opposite. There's no action on impulse. You're saying no to impulse and you're saying yes to higher streams of consciousness. So anyways, with all that being said, the ability to do that, have that experience with Claire and with her school, then started to come home into our house as just like clearing energy, right? We just started to, being out in the world, picking up energy. Let's clear our energy. And we just started with these very real, tangible practices. Like you can put your energy in a glass of water, which I don't do much anymore because I have a whole other thing. There's some practices that I engaged in that I just feel like, I have this whole thing about not littering negative energy back into the world. And so anyways, there's all these things that you can do with your energy. So we started to do those and we were making videos on that and she would remember it. Right. And so then she'd practice it in the world or my mom would come over and she'd be like, Mimi, you need to tell that energy that they have no power here. Leave now. She would just be with the concepts. And it just expanded a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I always give her the choice. It's never I'm going to go over here and meditate. If you would like to join me, you can. If you don't, you can leave. I'll never pressure you to meditate. So I always believe, and that's a whole conscious parenting approach, right? Give the choice, give 2 positive choices so that they hold on to their power and they recognize that they can make choice in their life. And I learned a lot about conscious parenting and I love a lot of pieces of it. But at the end of the day, I also want to have my own individual style of what feels true and aligned for me and my parenting with that specific child. So I don't know if that answers your question on like opening the space to Claire, but that's kind of how it unfolded.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It totally answers my question. And because, I have a 4-year-old and then it's like, how do you bring certain things down to her level? But you're right. It's just the modeling of things. And even this morning that truly did happen. And I was going around the house and we were rushing through our morning and she was like, Mom, let me show you how you can calm down. Let's breathe together. And she started, and I'm like, who are you? But then I was so proud, so proud that she caught me having a bad moment and she was like, okay, let's calm together and regulate. I was like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. And it's just modeling of doing it over and over with her over time. So it makes a lot of sense that would naturally extend to the spiritual practice like that. So that's so beautiful, really.
Yeah. That's amazing. I was going to ask you, Sophie, what, in terms of your own like spiritual connection or practices, let's say, how has that evolved for you since motherhood? Because obviously now you're inviting Claire into your practices and the things that you've shared with us so far. But have you found anything that's shifted for you? And like, as an example for me, I found, before kids, it was like, okay, like meditation first thing in the morning, very, at the same time, all of the, I do channel writing and things like that. Whereas now with kids, I had to learn how to be more flexible with my practice and how to be more flexible with what my spiritual connection even looked like. Whereas now I'll be, on the ground doing puzzles with my 2-year-old. And it's like in that moment, I can find that spiritual connection and be tuned in and be very present, which, was something that I had to learn. So as using that as an example, what has shifted for you or anything else that you found has changed and evolved for you since becoming a mom?
So my sacred morning practice is very, very important for me. And Claire is a really good sleeper. She always has been. I mean, from the time she was 3 weeks old, I mean, we had a system down. She only woke up once a night. And then, she would nap 3 to 4 hours a day. Like she has always been a really good sleeper, which has provided me these pockets of beautiful connection. Right. So I have a sacred morning practice that I I value very much. And I get up to honor that before anyone in the house does. So I'm a very early riser. And that is one thing that's kind of like a non-negotiable for me. And I just absolutely do every single day. And it just fits. It fits with my life. But Claire's not waking up I know some parents that have kids that wake up at 5:36, right? Like that's not our situation. So if we would let her, she would sleep till 9. She would just, but we have to get to school. So that's not an option. So anyways, with that, I feel like it was just really important for me to see how important that was. And initially, right after she was born, that obviously shifted. I had a home birth, and I had a very traumatic home birth. It was 43 hours of labor.
Wow.
And then I got 25 stitches from my midwife after. I passed out. I had a vertical birth. And so I stood up after and I passed out and I went to a whole other realm. And then anyways, long story short, I was not that balanced for about 6 weeks. Like physically, I couldn't walk for 3 weeks. Like I was, and I had like jaundice and I was yellow, all these things. But then once I kind of like got my stabilization back, which I do feel happens for every mother, there's going to be a period where you just kind of like wake up and you're like, wait, I kind of remember. Okay. It's like enough stimulation has equalized and neutralized. And you're like, okay, I can remember, I can exhale. Now I need to take an inventory of my needs as me. One thing that I was always very passionate about working with women, especially mothers, when I did more one-to-one coaching in the beginning of my career, was not making mom your main identity, not letting Sophie go. I'm Sophie, I'm mom, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, like really being aware of those roles. Cause I think too many women, especially, just throw it all away and only focus on that. And I believe that leads to hidden resentment that lives in the bloodline that gets probably passed down from generations. This hidden resentment, and resentment, I believe, is the beginning to all dis-ease. It's a frequency that hides in the shadows, and I see it in a lot of, so when I do this work with people, even if they don't necessarily have cancer yet, but they have a massive resentment issue, that's a frequency that we immediately go in and address. And a lot of how we address that is, well, the deep hidden work, which is a whole other piece, but then also like reclaiming the self, the soul, the you, right, in this human body for right now, reconnecting with that and letting that have an identity, coming back, awakening that truth, and then bringing that into motherhood as well, so you don't lose it. I worked with so many women, especially like empty nesters, who had to re-meet themselves. 20 years was put away. And it's a hard process. And so once I started experiencing that with all these women, I have over 10,000 documented hours of one-to-one healing with people. I got to see lots of life paths and lots of stories. I kind of feel like I was able to live a lot of lifetimes in this lifetime through just observation and support and journeying with others. And so I would start to help younger mothers not check out like that. So that's something that I think is just really important for your conscious mind to activate. Like, I matter. I am important. It's not just about being a mom. It's also about being a woman with a mission. Mm-hmm. And motherhood is a part of that. Absolutely. But it's also more. There's more, because I believe everyone came here with a mission that's big.
Yeah. Absolutely. So much more. And that's so true. And learning to put yourself first, it's so hard, but so important, because only when you're at your best, only when you're strong, only when you're nourished, only when you're right, is that you can show up as your best self for everything else in life. So that's so true and so important for all of us to remember. Okay. Now, my next question was the other way around. So we've heard about how you're modeling things for your daughter, but what have you learned from her over the years through this practice?
It's funny. Claire will say straight out, she's like, Mom, I like your calm version of you. Because I'm a Gemini, right? And so I feel like it's very, oh yeah. So I feel like there's very much two sides. There's like the very intense, like my friends will even call me like a fierce healer, like entrepreneur, like let's go. I was an athlete in college. Like I have that warrior spirit. But then I also have, and I feel like this is what Claire really activated in me, because I really thought she was going to be a boy. I like felt it everywhere. When we did like her gender reveal, I went through like a 72-hour shock. I saw pink in the cake and I was like,
That can't be right.
I was speechless, which has never happened in my life. So Claire has really activated this feminine frequency in me. I like to say she has brought in the pink. And now I'm like always in pink and pastels, and that calmer, more connected, more like pause before we exert, like that athlete can calm down and get recentered before we act. So that's one thing that I think Claire has really activated for me is the divine feminine, and really helped bring that in. Not that I ever pushed away the divine masculine, but now I'm learning to really work with them in a unified field and within me. And so that I feel like is a big gift from her spirit, being a female, especially since this is the only one that I have. I think it's just so special that she brought that.
That's so beautiful. It's so funny because I had a kind of similar experience with my first daughter where literally everyone around me, I had like intuitives and all these people like, it's boy, it's a boy, it's a boy, it's a boy. I thought it was a boy. And then we did the gender reveal too, which we did like throwing a baseball and my husband hit it and it's like pink. And we're like, what? Oh my God. Like same, like shock. We were even thinking of boy names, and then it was just like, oh, we're having a girl. Like, and I had to wrap my head around the fact that I was having a girl. So it's funny that you said that because I could really relate to that type of experience.
Yeah. Yeah. The shock, right?
Yeah.
The mere shock when you just think that what is going to happen and it has a different path. And it's funny, as you're saying that, I see your baby blue shirt. I don't know. It's like, I almost, when you hit the baseball, I was like envisioning it. And I was shocked when you said, and you saw the pink. So I get it. It's,
Yeah. Totally. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. But it's really powerful to see, and I think as a mom, as a parent, to be able to appreciate what our kids are bringing to show us or to help mirror back to us, like you said, like the divine feminine being awakened within you. And just I think understanding, I feel for me it's been a huge this like almost like a co-creative relationship in a way. It's kind of like it's more than just, I think sometimes we grow up, whether we had that direct experience with our parents or we just kind of see it in society, parents like, you do this and you listen to me and you obey and that's the end of the story, versus now as a parent, it's like, no, we're in this relationship together. We're growing together. I'm supporting you, but you're also helping me to learn things about myself and heal and experience these aspects of me that I didn't even know existed or that were so buried deep that I forgot about them or whatever. And to walk a journey where it's like we're growing and building something together. So on that note, have you had any sense or seen things or just whatever an experience now with Claire in terms of what kind of legacy or what kind of journey you two are walking together? Because it really feels, just from you sharing your stories and watching you online, that there's something really beautiful that's being built here. And maybe it's also just a journey of unfolding. We'll see where this leads us. But any insights that has come through for you so far?
I mean, Claire always says, if you ask her what she wants to be when she grows up, she always says, I want to be a healer. And so that is something that she carries. But then I also feel like because she says that, it's my responsibility to expose her to what that really means. So one of the things I did was I made her very own meditation of some very basic practices that I teach my students, right? And that's just like grounding your energy, connecting into the ground, connecting your crown cord to the divine, and then allowing you a blessing of divine love and light to come through your blood. So it's 5 minutes, but it's specifically for her. It has her name in it, so, but I don't push it on her. I just say, we have this meditation. I made it this summer, so we could kind of do it during the summer in the morning. And do you want to do the meditation today? No. Do you want to do it? Yeah, let's do it. I can tell, like, the days that we do it, her spirit is very, very much more open. And I can remember the other day, her being like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm like, okay, well, if you want to be a healer, we need to make sure that we're engaging in practices that, open us up to that path. Because I think that at the end of the day, she's 8. What is, she's just saying she wants to do what I do. But I think that's important for me, is to like show that it's not just like saying something. Like, if you say it and it's empty, it doesn't build trust. But if we say something and then we start to take action, that's where we start to build a legacy in our word, and people can trust us, and we become more magnetic. So just in something as simple as that, like, healers meditate. Most healers that I know, they meditate. And so if that's what you want to be, let's start practicing. In the same way, if you want to be a carpenter, let's start cutting wood. It's one thing to say you want to be a carpenter. It's another thing to know how a saw works, and to know how to safety protocol and tools to use when you're building something. So that's one thing that I think is a current legacy builder, is really teaching the power of what you say, back it up with action to enhance your truth frequency.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's so applicable to literally any part of life too, just to back up what you're saying with action. That's so huge. Amazing.
Yeah. And I'm interested because, it's a wonderful tool, really, but are there other like tools or teachings? And you've brought up a number of times Dyer's children's books and things like that. What are other things besides meditation that we can introduce to our kids that are going to be helpful in this spiritual journey?
So you might not like my answer, but I'm going to share it anyways, because I believe it's so true. And that is your presence. It's all your kids want. Your kids want your undivided, undistracted attention. The currency of your attention is worth billions, and that's what they want. And that's why we do the inner work, so that we know how to shut off the chatter, and we know how to be present, and we know how to not be building a grocery list when we're playing with blocks.
Yes. I'm so guilty of that. Absolutely.
Yeah. But that connection, if you're able to go all in with that kind of divine attention, will build so much internal safety for them. First we have safety, then we have connection, then we have direction. So we try to direct without having safety and connection, and it doesn't work. We're all anxious and freaked out. And we're like, go put on your shoes. But have we taken the time to actually calm the field and connect with them and have eye contact and make sure that everyone is okay and feels safe, and then direct? Yeah, at first it does take some repatterning, and it might take more time, and you might be a little bit late, and that's okay. Because are you going to remember in a year from now being late to school those 10 times and how much that affected them? Probably not. But they will remember the connection of being able to learn to tie their shoe when it's something they've been working on, because they were more calm. Mm-hmm. And those moments matter, in my opinion. Those moments are more important than any tools, any practices, any rituals that come from your mind or a book. It's that pure, undivided attention that is a currency that builds their worth. Yeah. And ultimately, for an adult, we don't build worth that way. But for a child, that's an important investment, I think.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really love that. Yeah. I'm just like, oh, yes, thank you. So good. So as we kind of get towards the end of our conversation, Sophie, I would love to hear what is something that's exciting for you right now in your life, for you and your daughter, whether it's work related or life related? Like what's going on with you, and what are you excited for?
Well, it's funny. I'm going to share something very unique and personal, but we live in a historic home, and it was built in 1941. So it's on the older side, and we have a lot of the original parts of this home. So we've been little by little restoring it. We've built a new traffic pattern. I built a master closet last year. It's like my dream closet, which is awesome. But right now, currently, we are in the midst of replacing all of our windows to get hurricane-proof windows. So this is also a safety measure. And I feel like the reason I wanted to share this is because twofold. One, it's not fun to spend a ton of money on windows, right? Like that is not a fun purchase. But it was a very important purchase because we live in South Florida and hurricane season is very real. And I wanted to feel safer in our home. Mm-hmm. And so this was a step and an investment that I wanted to make in my physical safety of having upgraded windows. And I was just thinking today, because our house is flipped upside down, all the couches are pushed in, there's stuff draped everywhere. I mean, there's 15 guys on our property, saws everywhere. It is chaos. It's like chaos. My husband is like, ooh. I didn't realize he needed that peace so much because he's a very chill guy. But anyways, that's what they say is like the husbands freak out in construction the most because women are used to kind of like managing the chaos a little bit more. We keep so much peace for the men, historically. But anyways, so we're in this process right now of redoing our windows and like ripping out the old and replacing with the new technology. And I just feel like it's such a representation of the bloodline work that I do. The windows of our soul, like we're removing that old, outdated glass that is not prepared to keep us safe during a storm. And we're replacing it with updated technology. So I just think that that's really cool and makes it more meaningful and more able to handle the dust and the chaos that comes with this kind of change. It's like a 2 to 3 week process that will just be upside down and living in it, So I think that that's really cool to like look at your external life as this reflection. What is this reflecting back to you about your internal state? And I feel like this is bloodline work in action. This is it. This is what it looks like. So
that's amazing. I love how you can mirror everyday life into your spiritual path in such a natural way, and it seems like seamless. So that's such a superpower. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So cool.
Yeah. So for women and mothers and anyone listening, that want to step more fully into their soul path and hopefully achieve something like this and that level of interconnection, what's one piece of guidance that you would like to leave them with?
That you can heal anything. I believe that those 4 words are very, very, very important to me. I feel like they are my truth frequency. I wear those on my aura. You can heal anything. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it is possible. And, if people are looking for deeper support, I offer that in our containers that we offer. We have a globally recognized spiritual life coach certification, which is really helping people step into awakened leadership and walking differently through their life, through their career, through motherhood, by internalizing these kind of tools and techniques. So it's fascinating work. It is, I'm just seeing people transform on such a rapid level through this work. And so if people want deeper support, it's here, it's ready. And we do cohorts of women and men. We are opening back up our program, Spiritual Entrepreneur and Life Coach Certification for men. We've had a couple cohorts of that, and Spirit was just like, it's time. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
To be doing this work with the masculine, but I do keep them separate for now. We will see if Spirit ever asks me to do co-ed, but for now it's just separated between men and women.
So beautiful. Amazing. And where is the best place that people can connect with you and learn more about the certification program, learn more and just connect with you online? How can we find you?
Awaken with Sophie, anything. So Awaken with Sophie on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. No, wait, we're not on Twitter. TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest. We are all over there. And then awakenwithsophie.com will show you all of our different things. We have a lot of different free resources as well that we offer, that if you just kind of go around the site, there's different blogs and, just different processes that you can go through. And we have a search bar that's really important to me on our website, because I feel like it just makes finding exactly what you need available. So like, for instance, this morning I typed in addiction into our search bar because I wanted to see what would come up, and it goes through our blog, and it showed me all the blogs that I've written over the past how many ever years on addiction. And so then I can just easily access those links. So use the search bar. If you have an issue that you're dealing with, just use the search bar at the bottom, type it in, and it'll take you to the blogs that we have on that topic.
Amazing. I love that, making it so nice and easy for people. So good. And we'll also have all the links in the show notes. So for those of you who would like to just, click something, go check out the show notes below, and we'll have that there for you. And otherwise, Sophie, just want to say once again, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a beautiful conversation. And that for me, I've received so many beautiful nuggets that I am excited to apply in my everyday life with my girls. So thank you.
Yes. Well, it was so lovely meeting with you guys as well. I've enjoyed feeling your spirits and your energy. I can tell that you are very special souls. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for your time. And yes, I walk away with so much wisdom and insights that I can't wait to just start implementing right away. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. It was a lovely conversation.
Yeah. Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.